Hello, everyone. My name is Mark from the Misplay Podcast, and you're listening to EternalJourney, everyone's favorite Eternal podcast.
Welcome to EternalJourney, the podcast.
Greetings, all my knights and Padawans out there. Welcome to EternalJourney, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and this is episode 63 of the podcast, where we're going to have a very special guest on the show, despite having time zone difficulties. But first, I want to welcome my good friends. John Holio, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jedi. Hey, gang. I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm going to do great. Life is fantastic. Absolutely amazing. Moving right along, though, coming all the way from the West Coast is Alex. What's up, Alex?
What is up, guys? How's it going?
We got the podcast running. I'm good enough with that. We'll had some
that's
technical
exciting.
difficulties this week, but fixed it, got the PC up and going, so things are good. So now I want to welcome on the show our very special guest, a man that needs no introduction because he is so humble he refused to give me anything to say. But hey, he did some great things for the community, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and been a ongoing name in the Eternal Stream directory. I want to welcome on the show Y0ttabyte. What is up, friend?
G'day, Jedi. Hello, John, Alex. How you guys doing?
G'day.
Good day. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I really do appreciate it, man. I know it is, what time is it for you right now? It's sometime early morning, right?
Yeah, it's just on 10 a.m. Not too bad. It's not a 4 a.m. ECQ start like always. That's always a good one.
Oof.
Fair. Do you even sleep for those ECQs, or do you like wake up early, go to bed early, or do you just stay up all night?
All of the above.
Fair. I can understand. I think I've done that myself. I don't remember. I think I just wake up really early for the ECQs, which we will talk about later on. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. You can catch myself, Alex, and John at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ, where we stream as long as my computer decides to cooperate 4 days a week, Saturday to Tuesday. We do a lot of limited on there, so come hang out with us. And then, of course, if you can't catch our content live, check us out at youtube.com, where you can see even the video version of this show. That's right, all the cards that we talk about and what's the plays and pack ones will have a picture on screen for you to reference. Of course, various draft videos and whatnot. You can even catch a written draft article at eternalwarcry.com. Shout out sections today. Well, as you might have guessed, I didn't stream this week because my computer decided to disagree with me. So I have no new members to the Jedi Order, but of course want to give an ongoing shout out and thank you to all the great supporters of the Order. Our Discord is growing every day, a fantastic community of people helping out with each other. In fact, we just started putting some groups together for games outside of Eternal, which has been a lot of fun. But man, you know, pack one, pick ones have been going up all the time, and it is an absolute blast. Most recently, I think I had a trip. Somebody had a Thunder of Wings pack one, pick one, and I think 8 different people managed to come up with 8 different ways to say pick Thunder of Wings, which I think was a blast. But definitely check that out as well. So thank you once again to all the ongoing subscribers, Discord members, and Twitch followers, and everyone else out there. You guys are what makes the Jedi Order so great. All right, that does it. So let's get into some nuts and bolts Eternal here. Y0ttabyte, are you ready for some pack one, pick one action, my friend?
Let's do it.
Excellent. So you are going to have first dibs because you are our guest. I'm going to run through all the commons. You can tell me if any of these stand out to you or any opinions. All right, so double Helix Drake, 1/4 for 5 primal flying. Your spells deal +1 damage. Mastery 3, your spells deal an additional 1 damage. Covetous Stranger, 2/1 for 2 fire. When one or more strangers attack, their owner creates and draws a treasure trove. Magnificent Stranger, 2/3 for 2 time. When one or more strangers attack, reduce the cost of the top card of their owner's deck by 2. Stone Powder Bomber, 5/4 Oni for 6 fire. Exalted on your turn. Ensnare, kill an enemy unit or attacking enemy unit with flying for 1 justice is a fast spell. Platinum Kieran is a 1/2 Kieran for 2 time with flying and mastery 2. Create and draw an Eternity Core. Eternity Core is a 4-cost relic that gives you rate +2 maximum power. Ruinous Burst is the 1 fire fast spell. Deal 1 damage to 2 enemies. And Grave Watch Ancestor, the 2/3 elf cultist for 3 time. Ultimate, pay 6 to give Grave Watch Ancestor plus attack and plus health equal to the highest health among units in your void. All right, Yoda, any of these make an impression on you?
So the 2-time commons, Magnificent Stranger and Grave Watch Ancestor, I'm a big fan of both of those cards. Out of those two, I probably prefer the Magnificent Stranger, just a really solid, well-statted unit in Limited, and obviously if you can start swinging with it, making your top card cost cheaper is really powerful. Ancestor is not really well statted on the front end, but as the game scales late, it can just become a huge body with that ultimate abilities.
So let me ask you something while we're on that topic. Where do you fall as far as the whole like symmetrical aspect of the strangers, as far as potentially giving your opponent more benefit than it's given you?
Yeah, that's probably one of the main gripes I have with the whole strange mechanic. Not just in Limited, also in Constructed. I feel like other card games have done similar things and reverted it so the symmetrical effects only affect you. I'd kind of in an ideal world for Eternal, but I guess it does give some counterplay and some really interesting decision points when it comes to these strangers in Eternal.
Yeah, I started off being like, I'm just gonna take the fixing ones and let my opponent hook me up, and then I've kind of skewed a little bit on the rare ones, just because I feel like most of the rare ones are slightly less beneficial for your opponent if they do trigger them. You know, most of it is the activate ability where you get the payoff, but man, a couple times I've taken it, I've regretted them. Just like, yep, my opponent played a 3/3 and now I'm just kind of stuck. But yeah, I agree. I like Grave Watch Ancestor and a Mag Stranger. All right. So, John, Alex, I'm going to throw the uncommons at you guys before we send it back over to Y0ttabyte. We have Forlorn Griffin. This is the 1/3 flying griffin for 3 primal. When you play a relic, you gain an Aegis. So it essentially allows your relics to protect themselves. Timidity, the curse for 2 justice. The cursed unit can't attack, but of note, it can still block. And Fear Tracker, the 5/4 elf for 5 shadow. Summon. Fear Tracker deals 3 damage to the enemy player, and you gain 3 health. Corrupted 4. So of course it makes a 0/4 shade, 0/4 shade. And then
0/4.
0/4. There you go. 0/4 shade, and then you could pay 4 to sack the shade to deal 3 and gain 3. I know I'm going through these a little fast, guys, but we're pretty late in this format, so I do apologize if you are a new player, but some of the people have been around and are tired of listening to these cards. So, John, do any of these 3 cards stand out over Mag Stranger or Grave Watch Ancestor?
Yeah, Fear Tracker is like right there with Mag Stranger. It's quite good, but I mean the double shadow is a thing, a consideration. But the power level is pretty good. It's really good with recursion. The shade gives you quite a few turns to decide to go ahead and sacrifice it for a corrupted cost. Like I think it's pretty good. I'd probably pick that here over the Mag Stranger for pick 1.
All right, Alex, do you have anything to add, brother?
Not much to add. I'm also on the Fear Tracker plan. I think it's like slightly better.
Okay, all right. So we have a rare, which I think is a consideration. So, Y0ttabyte, Fallen Albin is a 3/3 warrior for 5 double time, double primal, Aegis, charge, endurance, and then summon. Enemy units are reckless and can't fly until your next turn. Corrupted 2. So Y0ttabyte, out of this pack, what were you at on it?
It's actually pretty funny that this is the pick one, pack one. I haven't done a ton of drafting in the last few months, but out of the drafting I've done, I think Albin Fallen has been probably in like half of my draft decks. I can't escape this card. It always gets offered to me. Judging by what I've just said, I've always taken it because it can just turn the game instantly. Giving all your opponent's units reckless just takes most of the decisions away from them, and you can just let them chump attack into your board. I mean, obviously you need a pretty healthy board state to make this effect really, really powerful, but if that's the case, it can be definitely game changing.
So you've been happy with it in every one of your decks?
I think so. I mean, obviously taking it pack one, pick one, there is a pretty significant influence cost for Albin, so you are sort of committing pretty early.
I think I'm just a little off of the pack one, pick one Albin here. Just like the influence definitely is a little off-putting for me as far as this goes. So I do like the effect in the right deck. It's extremely backbreaking. Like it may not be as good if you're in like an aggressive like Elysian Flyers deck or something like that, but any time deck with big butts and things like that is going to be set up most of the time to take advantage of Albin. But just because it's pack one, pick one, I'm kind of with Y0tta in that I've been like past a bunch of these guys in a bunch of drafts, so like I'd rather just kind of be open and get past one of these, I think. So I'm probably still on Fear Tracker personally.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's a pretty big signal if you get past it, right? It's a clear sign that your opponent's or whoever the two people passing to you are at
and
least...
it's just the kind of card where like if somebody else opens this and they're not Elysian or like in that deck, you're gonna get past this every time, right? Like.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of the board when Albin has been absolutely backbreaking and destroyed my board, and when he kind of did nothing. So
yeah,
I've seen that too. High risk, high reward for sure. So taking a pack one, pick one, Y0tta, is there anything you do differently in your deck building process? Obviously you're probably trying not to be in 3 colors or have a very light splash, but other than that, like, is there anything else you try to do to accommodate Albin taking a pack one, pick one?
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to follow it up with your even stuff like Gravewatch Ancestor that can get pretty big late and just eat your opponent's board. If it was like a serious like draft tournament or something, I would probably go Fear Tracker as well, just because it's not you can stay open and read the packs further on. But when I'm just like casually streaming or whatever, I'll try and take a flashy rare just to see what I can do with it. And you only get so many opportunities to play with rares over uncommons, so I like to spice it up where I can.
Hell yeah.
Nice. Cool. Alex, how about you, buddy? What's your tiebreaker opinion on it?
Yeah, no, that was a good comment about wanting to spice it up there. It's like, you might not get that many chances to play with that card. I tried it one time and it didn't work out, so I have a very small sample size and I got very biased really fast. But I would still take Fear Tracker because of what everyone said, just staying open. And yep.
Yeah, I'm right there with Alex. Like, I totally tried Albin like in one of my drafts, and I don't know if my deck just wasn't set up for it right or whatever, but he totally, I got burned on him too. And I'm like a little hesitant now, but I've seen him really do some work in draft games. So
I think he could easily be a 3-4, and it would be maybe a little better,
That being said, attacking with him puts a very interesting position on your opponent because he has endurance. So even if they just let him through, you could still potentially block with him, and they have to decide on whether that shade is going to wreck their board further or not. Because I've definitely been posed by that. They play it, they get 1 or 2 units, but they still have all their units, and it's like I'm like, I really don't want them to do that effect again. So it's an interesting card for sure. Nice,
cool.
Well, that's our pack one, pick one. All right, now that we got the pack one, pick one out of the way, this means it's time to jump right into our main topic, which is getting to know the infamous Y0ttabyte. So let's start off quasi at the very beginning. How long have you been playing Eternal? Because for as long as I've known the game, I've known you. So
Yes. So I've been playing for almost 4 years, and
Wow.
it feels like an eternity almost. Yeah. So I got in really early in the closed beta. Found out about the game because I was an avid Magic the Gathering player at the time, and I would pretty much idle and watch many different Twitch streaming Magic, and obviously LSV's a prominent Magic streamer, and he started talking about this game that he was working on amongst with Patrick Chapin, etc., which eventually ended up being Direwolf Digital, and he sent out the opportunity to get into the closed beta through his stream, and I signed up straight away, and before long I was playing Eternal in the early days of I think that's around about the middle of 2016 that was.
oh wow, were you immediately hooked on it, or did it take some time to kind of warm up to the game?
Yeah, I definitely was hooked on it at the start. I was also pretty addicted to playing Black Desert Online at the time, and also was playing Magic pretty heavily at the time as well. So it didn't come to the forefront not until I'd say 2017 is when my interests sort of waned in other distractions, and obviously I started streaming Eternal pretty much every day, and that's when the grind started.
So in the closed beta, did you run into a lot of people that come from other card games have to get used to the interactions and the timing of stuff on Eternal? And to this day, I still don't. I always have to ask chat sometimes. I'm like, chat, which one of these resolves first? How does this work? So was it just like the Wild Wild West for you during the closed beta, or did it kind of take a little bit and then it sunk in how it worked, or what?
Yeah, definitely. The fact that things kept their stats and battle skills or whatever when they died, or on top of their on top of your deck, that was like the most mind-blowing mechanic, because that was just nothing any card game has done before. I think we kind of take it for granted these days, but that's still a really unique aspect of Eternal. And then just running into cards like Sandstorm Titan for the first time and just losing your mind. How did they print a card like this? This card's broken. All sorts of those cool things that a new player goes through when they pick up this game.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So, like you said, it feels like you've been playing for eternity, and at one point, wow, I did not realize you were streaming it every single day. So, what over the course of the years, what kept your interest in the game?
I think it's just the community more than anything. Like Eternal has such a great community, and that's really just kept me, involved with the game over time. Just making connections and good friends over the years.
So I have to agree with you 100%. The community of Eternal is absolutely amazing, and I find very few people that can disagree with that. And I understand, like, it's one of the reasons why I enjoy streaming so much, because I feel like I'm just hanging out with my friends, and I get that vibe in other streamers as well when I get to lurk. So I was going to ask this question a little bit later, but because you mentioned the community, I think it's a great segue. So you were, I think as of right now, you're still the only person to have purchased the create your own card from the Direwolf store. In fact, I think you did it.
Yep.
I think you did it like a month after it was released or something like that, right? It was fairly.
It was about 10 months ago, 11 months ago, I think. Yeah.
So I want to get. You did something special. I guess this will be a two-part question. So you did something special, and that's what I want to talk about. You actually made it a community event to help design the card with your community, and you did it over the course of various streams and held a tournament and things like that to make it happen, which I think was absolutely amazing. And you've kind of set the precedence for any other streamer that wants to do something like this. But before we get into that, or I guess after, up to you, you can order it how you want. Is there anything specific that you'd like to share as far as working with Direwolf on getting the card made and getting it out and stuff? Because they did release it fairly quickly. Like, I mean, it was in the very next set, which I don't think anyone was expecting. Is there anything about that interaction that you wouldn't mind sharing with the community?
So yeah, the whole process was really, really interesting and really, it was really enjoyable working with Direwolf. I think it helped that they were kind of fans of the design from the get-go, so there wasn't really much that they had to do in terms of. I think we had a bit of back and forth on just like the strength and health of the unit, but other than that, like the overall design of the card was like consistent the whole way through. So that really made the process like pretty straightforward and really easy. In terms of why I chose to do a community-based submission, I just figure I would not be in that position of designing a card without the community. So it's really, I thought it was just a really good opportunity to give back to them, and essentially they're the ones who earned it. So I felt that they deserved to have the really, let's face it, rare opportunity to design a card. Not many, like you say, I'm the only one who's done it so far. I know it's buried in, and Gibbon Plus Plus are currently working with Direwolf to get their. They've bought the design already, and they're currently. I'm hoping to see their designs in the next set. That would be excellent. But yeah, there's only a handful of us that have been able to get that many blue balls so far. So yeah, just a really unique and opportunity to give back to the community. It's I thought it made sense.
No, it was an absolute great idea, and hats off to you and everyone for designing a super fun card. And I think everyone was very much inclined to try to play with it when it was released, and even now it still sees play from time to time. So I put it in all my cube drafts as well when I can. So yeah, thanks for doing that. It was just something great that I definitely wanted to mention. I had it later in the show, but we segued so well, so why not? So
yeah, I can't imagine a better way to do it and give back. You know, like, well said. And yeah, what a sweet card. Like, something that's actually played and not hated, and like, I'm happy to see it anytime I'm playing a limited format. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, I know a lot of people are disappointed that it hasn't been like a constructed staple or just tier 0 card. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, but I've definitely seen so many positive experiences with people enjoying the card, and that's just been well worth.
Just out of curiosity, because I've seen this in other card games, did Direwolf offer like any kind of design by Y0ttabyte or anything like that, or adding some kind of Easter egg with a name or anything like that, or was that just not
no? I sort of posed the question if I could get it called Yotta the Prodigy instead of Kira the Prodigy, and they just quietly just said we're calling it Kira the Prodigy. So yeah, no.
It would be nice if there was some, like, you know, when you hover over it, some icon or something to indicate that was a community card, because you know,
like
people that are coming into the game now, like, how would they even know, really?
Yeah, I do see that a lot, that people just have no idea it was a community design card, which is a little unfortunate, I guess. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, it would be cool.
Or even, you know what, like a collector's number, right? Somewhere on the card, there's like a little 1 and 2. Because, I mean, over the course of the game, you're going to have only a handful of people do this. So even if it's not a shout out to the person that designed it, just having some kind of indicator like, hey, this was a community card. You know what I mean? I think that nice little like check mark there.
Maybe with these other ones coming into the game, maybe they'll implement something like that. That'd be cool.
All right, so getting back on track. So you've played for the entire life of Eternal. So what's been your favorite set so far, Y0tta?
Not sure if it's rose-colored glasses, but I think most people who played in the early days cannot go past the empty throne. That just felt like the perfect set. I know it is a very big set and it did last a long time in terms of like the life cycle of the game. I think it was like almost a year before the start of closed beta to set 2. Definitely a lot of changes over the time of the Empty Throne in terms of its design and balance. But in both constructed and limited, especially limited, set 1 draft was amazing. That's going to be hard to pass.
Yeah, that was actually one of the cubes that I made before we had the simulator on Warcry, was the set 1 cube, because so many people never got to play with it, myself included. So I thought it was super neat, and a lot of people came out for it just to reminisce of the good old days. What was your favorite card that ended up changing? Like your favorite OG card, I should say.
Favorite OG card? Well, I guess I have a bit of a meme with my channel that Talia is the mother of the channel or whatever. And I've definitely had my fair share of times comboing off with Talia. And I guess that would qualify as one of my favorite OG cards for sure.
Nice. I have a favoritism towards Time just because I love casting giant big dinosaurs to smash people. Talia, was she always like that, or does she have any tweaks or redesigns throughout her lifespan?
Not directly, but they did have to change how Destiny worked at one point, because the combos with Talia would just last 20 minutes. So the change was longer play units with Destiny when your board gets full. Before that change, you would just keep playing units forever and ever and ever, and the combo would never stop. At least now, it can still take a long time, but yeah, Talia combo was crazy before the change for sure.
Okay. All right. So moving along, my friend, what's your favorite format and why?
Yeah, my answer doesn't deviate too much. If we're talking, are we talking like constructed formats or limited formats?
No, sealed, draft, expedition, throne.
Oh, that general. Usually in recent times, I've enjoyed sealed more than other formats. Yeah, I always have a good time with.
And do you do you wait till week 4 or to build your deck, or do you play every week regardless, or what's your take on it?
There's been some instances where my pool has just been very weak in the early weeks, and it hasn't really justified queuing up with the deck. That hasn't happened in quite a while. I usually try to play every week where I can. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So before we go into limited, I know we talked about it a little bit. I do want to touch on constructed just a little bit, because you have a reputation for being a very consistent player. And so let's go ahead and talk about 2 things. First one is, what do you do to prep for the ECQs and things like that?
Right. Well, I am a chronic procrastinator, so I can't admit to doing a lot of practice or reps with a certain deck, or trying to figure out what the best deck of the tournament is going to be. It does help that I am on an Eternal team, the Barbarian camp, filled with players who are much smarter than I am, and I usually see what they're up to and ask them for advice, etc. So I guess my main advice for anyone who's trying to get into the game on a competitive level is just try and get onto a team of some sort and get to know like-minded people and get the hive mind going.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference being able to shoot ideas off of people, and then being able to have friends that you can test specific matchups with and things like that can definitely go a long way. So what you're saying is that you're just good enough to pick up a deck last minute and just smash face with it? Is that the Yoda way?
Yeah, usually it's a last minute decision, and sometimes it turns out okay.
Have you ever just like completely train wrecked with the deck, like picked it up, like, all right, this is the deck we're playing, and just the interactions and the way the matchups just escaped you that weekend?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely bombed out of a few ECQs, just queuing up with whatever deck, lazy choice, and just regretting every moment of it.
I've definitely been witness to that a couple of times. Like you're pretty chill on your stream, but there's sometimes where I've caught like the forehead frown and the rub, and you're just like, is this seriously happening right now? So one last thing that I do want to talk about before we move away from competitive play is something that I kind of share with you. I just am not good enough for it to really matter, but you never stream with a delay, regardless of what competitive event you are in. What led you to make that decision, and how do you treat like potential, like, I don't know, all the things that you can get that get thrown back at you at chat? Because like you said, you're streaming every day, so of course, why wouldn't you stream the competitive events? That's what people want to see, especially in more recent times when Direwolf either A, hasn't supported broadcasting the event, or B, back when we had the Eternal Tournament series where it was all local. How's all that play out for you?
So I prioritize my stream more than anything in terms of competitive results or anything like that, and I just don't think streaming with a delay is, at least me as a viewer, I find not being able to interact with the streamer directly is a little frustrating when it's not something that they can read and respond to instantly. Obviously, there is some concerns about streaming without a delay. You open yourself up to people maybe opening your stream and being able to see your cards, of course. And also, there's opportunity for you to, I guess there's some questions about, is it okay that you're getting advice from your chat, etc. during competitive events? And I just don't look at my chat in game. It's obvious to see that because I have a webcam. So you can see me looking at the game and not looking at the chat for advice. But I think the interaction between the games, being able to talk to your chat and respond to them in real time, like in between the games, is really important. So that's probably the main reason why I do it.
Yeah, it's also a good way to keep your momentum, as well as like shrug off potential tilt moments when you could just take a second, interact with chat, and kind of talk to people. I definitely agree with you. I think, once again, going back to the community thing, it's been interesting because there have been times where, especially when I first started streaming, I didn't want to go off of my schedule where I was playing in the ECQs. And granted, I wasn't doing anything amazing or whatnot, but most chats that I've seen have been respectful of that issue, and they actually don't even give advice. They stay quiet. They might talk amongst themselves or say random off the wall things, and if they do say something, it's normally after the game, giving you feedback or something. So I think as a whole, the community respects and understands that. And I mean, I understand what you're coming from as well, because even this last ECQ, I had like my last 8 games there, and chat was, I had my own Discord. People were trying to keep up with me, so I was like, you know what, I'll just go live, but I won't have my headphones, or I'll mute chat or whatever. And they end up watching, and they were having a blast apparently until the very end. And then once I put my headphones on, they're like, dude, that game 3. So
like those special moments where you do really well in a competitive setting, and being able to share that with your chat in real time, like I don't think there's been anything parallel to that in my streaming career, that feeling of sharing a success with your community. I think that's just so good, and that's definitely a main motivator. And just going back to like the ghosting or like people reading your cards, I've been streaming for like 3 years, and I can probably count on one hand where I thought my opponent is like in the stream watching me. Again, this community is fantastic, and unless they're really good at it, I don't experience people cheating in that manner, if you consider it cheating. I don't experience people acting in game as if they can see my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to pick up on it too, right? Like there's some matchups you can kind of get a read on someone, and then there are other times where it's pretty easy to identify, like, okay, those last 2 lines of play make no sense based on the information given or whatnot. So plus, once again, you have 200, 300, 400 people in chat with you watching, and if there's anything I know is that chat, nothing gets by chat. There's always going to be someone that picks up on everything. So yeah, sweet. John, Alex, you guys got anything to add by this point?
Those are, as a viewer, I appreciate the liveness. I don't get to catch your streams all the time or anything like that because of the time zones and everything. But I think I've caught the last few at least ECQ runs that you've done. Those are always like, there's just something exciting about watching those live. It's just really cool.
Yeah, I was getting a big smile on my face when you were mentioning like going through that with your viewers and like how cool that was. So that's super.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I don't stream any of like the top 64 when things get down and dirty. Obviously, you got the Direwolf stream for that anyway, so there's no real point trying to compete with the official coverage. But yeah, in terms of day one, like I think it's not a big deal to just stream that and stream it live. It's not a you're not playing for a significant stakes.
Right. Yeah, that's cool.
Nice. Okay, so then let's head back over. This is a limited focus podcast, so we're going to shift gears and go into some limited play, which I have enjoyed. And I got one more thing to say about your stream. I think the most frustrating thing about Y0ttabyte stream is that I can't Shazam all your songs fast enough, and it bugs the heck out of me because you play some great music, and I'm like,
So my tip for that is if you're watching on PC, I actually have a little add-on underneath the stream that tells you what song's playing. So that might help you out.
Boom. Look at that. Fun fact. You learn something every day. Sweet. I'll definitely have to check that out because like literally I want to say 1 out of every 3 songs. I mean, you play good music, period, but I feel like 1 out of every 3 songs you play, I'm like, I want that in my collection.
Yeah, Yoda does have some top tier tunes.
And I feel like somehow it knows because it always seems to go with your mood as well. Like when you're more chill, it plays more chill music, and then when you're starting to get like slightly tilt or amped up, the music picks up as well. And I'm like, how does he have mood settings on his music? That's pretty epic.
Oh man,
it really is. Like I kid you not. Like the hoodie goes over your head, and the music changes to that. I'm like, how in the that's a top ranked streamer right there. Okay. So what is your favorite draft, or I'm sorry, yeah, actually, what's your favorite draft format, period, since you've literally experienced them all?
Yeah, set one draft. Yeah. You're just going back to the older nostalgia times. Set one draft was fantastic.
Were there a lot of drafters back then? Like, did people know what was going on, or were you just wrecking face?
Those were simpler times for sure. Everyone was kind of just learning the game and trying to figure out their way, but there was definitely some there's always been top tier players along the way that are much more intelligent than everyone else, including me.
Fair. All right, and so then focusing in on the current format, what is your favorite thing about the current draft format?
So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword that there's so much fixing in the format and you can just make a 4-color greed pile. But on the other hand, I kind of do wish for going back to the simpler days where you had your 2-color decks with defined archetypes that weren't just a bunch of cards jammed together. But it definitely can be fun on that metric as well, just playing a whole bunch of buffs and ignoring any of the influence costs that they have associated with them, which I find you can do in this format pretty handily.
So Alex is our resident 5-color good stuff guy. Where do you fall in that spectrum? I mean, obviously you just mentioned that you like both, but if you had your preference, do you just want all the greed in your deck, or do you like having a more streamlined, as close to refined deck as possible?
I think something that Direwolf's been struggling with in the last few formats is having a sort of defined draft format where there's 5 archetypes based on the different combinations of factions. I would really love to see a return to that because I do enjoy that probably the most, being able to get rewarded for, determining an open archetype and being able to draft that, rather than, I just feel like probably since the curated packs have been a thing, and there's probably a weakness of the curated packs with the humongous card pool that comes from them, you're kind of incentivized just to jam all just good stuff into your deck and just hope it sort of does its thing. And there's no real like super streamlined synergy going on there, which I kind of miss, to be honest.
Yeah, I think all three of us in this podcast are right there with you. The creative packs, though a good idea, it just in practice hasn't played out. And oh my God, when they flip it and we have the curated packs first and last, oh, it just makes drafting so frustrating, because you're like, well, if I get payoff X and Y and pack 2 and 3, then these are the cards I should take, but you have no idea if you're going to see those cards. So it's just it's a nightmare. I definitely feel you on that. So when you talk about defined archetypes, the last one probably being Defiance, would you consider that one with like Renown and things like that, or even further back from that?
Yeah, I mean, that format definitely had defined archetypes, but that format also had sort of I don't know if you want to call it a weakness, where you could just make a 4-color grid pile with all the fixing as well. So it did try to have archetypes, but they kind of fell over at the same time. It's probably been probably like the Dusk Road was like probably the opposite end of the stick, too hard on the archetypes, where if you didn't draft the archetypes, you just ended up with a terrible deck that didn't do anything. So it's definitely a fine balance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you simultaneously, because you're just being the best guest ever, answered the follow-up question as far as what's your least favorite, because you just talked about it. So what are there any hot takes you have, like some kind of tips and tricks that you've had some success with that's been going on, or any potential interactions that you just plain old like to do?
Nothing too much out of the ordinary. I just try to stick to the fundamentals as much as I can. I just rarely stray away from 18 power in my limited deck power base. I don't know, what sort of hot takes do you guys have that might fall into the category? Yeah.
I mean, there's the combo now. It's really tough because it's hard to have these kind of conversations so late in the draft formats, right? Because we could say stuff like, oh yeah, played Griffin, casting Electropy, and Tainted Mark is a combo that's great, but everyone knows at this point. What's something else? All the corrupted cards with Waystone Gate or Mysterious Waystone is good. And then, of course, reoccurring Waystone Gate in any form or fashion. And then everyone already knows you slam as many rectifiers as you can, more or less. But, I mean, kind of, yeah, that's the one thing. The format's been a little stale. Not saying boring, but it's a little stale now. And then, oh, yeah, of course, my personal favorite is always reoccurring Edge of Prophecy as many times as I possibly can is my favorite.
Yeah,
that's the one I'm thinking of, too. Like, favorite thing about the format? Yeah, doing Busted Edge stuff, probably.
Yeah.
The first draft I did, that's exactly where I went, and it was absolutely amazing. And like nowadays, I can't remember when's the last time I saw a Hook Sword or an Edge of Prophecy in draft, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and then when you do go for it now, you get disrupted by the opponent's Disjunction or Ruin that like everyone is running now too, because of just the way the meta is shaken up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that would be a classification of like a sort of. I've never seen like Disjunction so playable in a limited format before. It's cropped up here and there along the way, but this is definitely the format to me to be main decking your unmakes and Disjunctions, just because it has so many.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just like they've almost gone from playable to mandatory in my mind.
It's like, should I run my second one?
Yeah, dude. Like,
of them
yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What a world.
Mind you, and we're saying this coming off of the Exalted format. And
yeah, like we were saying that last format, like, oh, these effects have never been better. Like, consider running it main deck. And now it's gone from consider running it to consider running 2 or more, or have multiple ways to do this in your deck.
Yeah.
What's your favorite build around card, if you have one, as far as limited goes there, Yoda?
Does Waystone Gate count?
Yeah, we could. You want to once again have some dysfunction and stuff like that? Yeah, sure.
You build around the winning strategy. It's a build around.
Yeah. So you build around Waystone Gate with every sigil type, and you just have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Then just jump back.
So, shifting gears one more time as we lead towards the end, we had finally it happened. We've been talking about it for the longest time as a community, and it took a little bit of environmental influence and things like that for Direwolf to do it, but we got our Scion draft where you get to draft a 45 card deck, drafting packs that of a curated set. All 4 packs are curated, and there is no rarity restriction, so legendaries and rares for days, and greed is the name of the game. So Y0ttabyte, you were one of the first people to get on there. In fact, you were streaming because of your time zone up until the event went live, and then you started jamming games. How has the Scion draft been for you, and what do you think of it?
So what I like to do in the sign draft is I draft Waystone Gate, and then I put every one of my sigil into. Sorry, is this deja vu? Like, yeah, you just draft the most greediest pile of legendaries and fixing, and just go to town. Yeah.
I tried to be the fun police on one of my drafts, and it worked out a couple of games, but it definitely didn't end up being a 7-win deck because we did it in the previous show. We tried to break down potential archetypes and things like that, and honestly, there are a couple of little pockets of synergy you can put in your deck, but it 100% they catered it. Like the 2 drops are very weak, if any at all. There's no like heavy tribal synergy. It's total greed pile. I think one of the most busted things I did with my Rakano aggro deck was turn 3 chemo into a turn 4 blade crafter to get the chemo armor, and then on turn 5 I Dragon Forge to get another plate. Made it to
Goodness.
Yeah, but once again, I only did that one game. The rest of the time, though, I mean, I was taking aggressive 1-drops. I had the Tripwire Grenadin that deals 1 damage when it comes into play, when it's summoned and when it entomb. I took 2 of those, and I gotta say, those guys actually did some work. They did a decent job of getting rid of Life Speakers and Icarias and Rectifiers. But yeah, the deck, I think the deck ended up going 4 and 3 because sometimes people just had all the board wipes and giant bombs, and I was like, yep, my deck doesn't really do that. So
yeah. So yeah, the time-based greed pile is probably like the top tier strategy that you want to be doing, but eventually that gets a bit tired, and I ended up just. You look at your first pick 1, pack 1, and try and find the coolest sort of synergy that you could build around with it. Like I've drafted Herald combo. I've definitely done the Oni deck a couple times. I've done the dinosaurs, trying to bond out Clutch Keeper. So there's definitely some really cool synergistic things that you can try out, and they can be tough to assemble, but when they do, it's pretty rewarding.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of Scion Draft, right? Is just to make these great interactions that you probably didn't have a chance to do on Throne Ladder or anything like that, in just a limited format. Just feel super excited that you put Voltron together, so to speak. So
yeah, one Voltron my opponent did, which was super impressive, is they played Great Cool Titan and it got a harsh off the top of their deck. That was
I saw that.
Oh,
that was great,
man, nice. I'm trying to think what's another crazy thing I've seen done. But
that was particularly hilarious. I remember that.
I tried to live the dream, but it never played out. I had a what is it? The mayor? I forgot his name, but the 3/4 that you can sack an artifact or sack a relic to play the
Saheen?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I think it was 1 Waystone Gate is all I was running, and then I had 2 Pit of Lanoctas in my deck. and
nice.
And it never played out where I wanted to live the dream and like play the Waystone Gate, get my 8/8, sack it to get an early pit in play, and then play power, but it just never worked out. My opponents either killed the mayor or I never saw the Waystone. I was just like, no, but oh man, I tried. I think that was the most bonkers thing I tried to do. I've definitely gotten off a ton of Grand Marshal Ironthorn activations, like a ton. I take that card so highly. There was one deck where I had 2 of those plus 2 of the what is it, Combre Ambassador, the 3/5 that plays 2.
Yeah.
Oh man, so I was just ramping out of my mind, and I won so many games. Just like, yep, 15 power, wipe your board, swing.
Yeah.
So
Marshall's still great. Yeah.
yeah, that card's so good. The 4-drops have actually unimpressed me. There's so many 5/5s and 5/6s and like Imvaras, impressive 4-drops in this format, and they just really haven't performed, in my opinion. Have you kind of seen that, or has it been different for you?
I'd say the 4-drop that sticks out is Yusha, which is the 5/5 that equalizes the strength and health of anything that you play when she's in play. She can definitely put a lot of pressure on your opponent if they're just trying to doodle. Just slamming a 5/5 on turn 4 that kind of requires an answer. Vara is kind of been a little bit hit and miss. Obviously, they can just sack any early units they can to her, and then she's pretty much useless. But she can be pretty annoying if they don't have anything good to sack in the early game, for sure. But those are probably, and I feel like Sandstorm Titan's still Sandstorm Titan. Like he's pretty solid.
Actually, so let me track that statement. You make a very good point. And actually, so I feel like the body is not as impressive as I would like to. Like, don't get me wrong, all those are must answer threats, but everyone's doing so many busted things that the body isn't as strong as I would like to be. But I'll tell you what really pays off with the Sandstorm Titan is the Sandstorm aspect of it. Stopping flyers in a format filled with like Amelie and Zhou and so many, and the Tempest Bolt lady. Prophetic Bolt lady, the 2/4 Soothsayer. Oh my god, just being able to stop all those flyers has made a huge difference.
Now the one flyer that has really been impressive to me is Carve It Redeemed, the 6/6 flyer for 5 that generates influence whenever it does damage, and it pings each player at the end of their turn. One insane fixing, such good fixing for your greed pile decks, and the body is just brutal. 6/6 flyer for 5, like, it's a pretty good rate in a limited format, even if it is a powerful one.
Nice.
All right, so I had one question for you, Yoda. What is the meaning behind your screen name and in-game name?
So this was a name that I kind of picked up as a nerdy teenager in high school. Just being a computer nerd. I don't know why. It's just one of those things that you kind of pick a name at random and run with it. But it's like the highest order of like storage. Y0ttabyte is like, if you can think like a terabyte of terabytes, that's essentially a Y0ttabyte. It's 2 to the power of 80 bytes. And I thought, oh, that's so cool and computery. And I probably had the screen name for probably like 16 years now or something like that. So yeah, it's just something that I've stuck with for a very long time. Nothing too interesting or in depth behind it. It was just a nerdy teenager, one in a different lifetime.
I don't know. I actually think it's pretty cool, to be completely honest with you. Especially the fact that you came up with that when you were a teenager. That's pretty impressive. All right, well, that is going to do it for our interview. That's as much information on Yoda you get today. I do appreciate you being on the show, Yoda. We're still going to use you for some more great content. But thanks. It was fun. Yeah, you're just great, man. I'm so glad we have you on the show. You're awesome, dude. But with that, we're going to go into our What's the Play. This week's What's the Play is brought to you by me, because last minute I remembered. And luckily, most of my limited games are extremely difficult to navigate, as you can tell on my stream where I'm pulling my hair out. So, once again, if you guys are listening to it on your drive to work or just hanging out or doing other things, you could definitely go on YouTube to see the actual photo of this if you want to follow along, or we're going to have articles coming out soon on Eternal Warcry of all these What's the Plays broken down in depth. So this one, our opponent is empty-handed, So I'll just knock that out. They're at 9 life. We are at 11. They have tradition based power, so time, justice, primal with a shadow splash. 2 of 7. We have instinct, right? Yes, instinct, which is fire, time, primal. And sadly, this deck has shadow, but I did not see it. And we are at 6 power. Man, this is a difficult one. I feel bad for the people just listening. Anywho, I'll power through it. Our opponent has a Waystone Gate with 1 activation on it and a Horn of Plenty. We have the Eye of Winter, which is the pay 2 and stun an enemy unit. In our hand, we have Double Corpse Bloom, the 7/7 endurance bouncy unit. When it is summoned for 7 time. We have a Seer, the 2 fire fast spell, deal 3 damage to a unit or player. The Dragon Dancer, Shadow Dancer, I don't remember, the 2/2 for 2 shadow that when you play a dragon ally, it gets a +2/+2, and then a Time Sigil, which we could play this turn. The board state, oh boy, okay. Opponent has, and I'm just gonna say these and then and remember it has a Horn of Plenty out, so they all get a +1/+1. So 2/2 Silenced Raven, a 2/3 double damage Willbreaker, a 3/7 Plagued Griffin that is currently stunned, a 3/5, I forgot the name of the unit, but it gives a +1/+1 to all your flying units, and then a
Windshaper.
Thank you. Windshaper, and then Windshaper, and then a 5/8 Lifesteal Rageheart Paladin. Our side of the board is the 2/4 Mark Maker. Mark, right? What's the? I'm getting confused with the Oni, the Overwhelm Oni.
I'm lost on this one.
It's not Mark. I think it's Mark Maker. I think it is. Anywho, the 2/4 vanilla
Mark
2/4.
Maker, the red one that gives something overwhelm.
Okay,
Mark
so that
Maker.
is. So what's this one? It's Mark something. Mark Spotter. Mark Watcher.
Your flying units get killer for mastery 4. That's how I remember it.
What's it called again? You spaced.
I don't know what it's called. I know it gives your flying units killer if you mastery 4.
Yeah. Anyways, it's that one.
Yeah,
The 2/2 Overwhelm Yeti, a 3/3 Clockroach, a 2/3 Magnificent Stranger, and then a 2/3 Gravewatch Ancestor that has not been activated yet. We have a 6/5 Sentry. Oh gosh, I'm horrible with names. The Sentry something, the Golem that deals 3 damage to a flyer and to face. Anywho, so that's the board state. Just go look at the pictures, guys. This one's a little bit much.
Oh wow, I was muted during that. Sorry, I had a few names for you there. My bad.
Oh, I hate
the
you
last
so
one was
much.
a Parapet Sentry.
Thank you. I knew it was the Sentry. I forgot the Parapet.
Yeah,
I was thinking
sorry.
Ballista. All right. Do you remember what the 2/4 is?
Yeah, the 2/4. What is that one?
No, Jedi's ruined that one in my head now because like the first thing he said was close, so now my brain can't come up with the right answer.
Is it Mark Watcher? I'm just gonna mute myself and
No.
look at Wall. All right, so Yoda, now through that debacle, what are you thinking to play here? And I'm gonna go look up the card while you're just saying that.
So first thing we have to check is if we have lethal, right? If we stun a unit and sear a unit, they have 2 blockers. We have 5 attackers. We can get in for 6 damage, so that's not quite lethal. So if we don't have lethal, maybe just developing the Corpse Bloom and trying to tempo out the opponent by bouncing them would be the Paladin, I guess, could be the way to go here.
Yeah.
Okay, it was Rune Marker.
Rune Marker, not Mark
Maker.
Maker.
Yeah. Correct. Okay.
Yeah, see, you broke it.
Okay.
Rune Mark Maker.
Yep. For the record, because that does matter, our opponent has been quite conservative this game. They got in very aggressive early because they were stuck on 2 power, and then once the board stabilized, they started to play a little more conservative. So just FYI. Yeah, I like that though. I like that you started off by finding out if we had lethal there or not. I like that quite a bit. I think that's a good point to start when you're this late in the game. Sending it over to Mr. Check for lethal. John, what would you do here?
Yeah. I guess the only question I have is, do you have any idea about the number of activations on the gate right now?
Yes, they have one. So
So
they
they've done it
two
once.
more.
Okay.
Yes.
So next turn they could power out a giant or like replay the guy. Yeah, I think in that case, I definitely just go with Yoda's line here. Unfortunately, the lethal check comes up a little short. So I mean, you got two corpse blooms just staring at you in your hand here. I'm sure that with some combination of corpse blooms and stuns over the next couple turns, we can find lethal here, and the seer in our hand as well. But yeah, I think this turn it's just bounce their most expensive / one guy that could change the game right now with all that life gain. Yeah, just bounce that and see what you can do next turn. As far as if they just spend the whole turn powering out that giant, maybe next turn it's just another corpse bloom the giant, and then you can maybe get a big attack in next turn. Based on the board, that probably would work out.
Okay. Alex, sending it your way, buddy.
Yeah, chaining corpse boom seems pretty good. Bounce the paladin this turn. If he plays the giants next turn, you bounce that. You swing with your corpse boom that can attack. If it goes to the graveyard, you can make your Gravewatch Ancestor huge the next turn, depending on what you have in your void already. So, I mean, this is a pretty tough spot for Titus and Blossom, it looks like, for me, with your hand. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay. And then did any of you have consideration for potentially activating the Gravewatch Ancestor now, making it a 7/8?
No, because you still can't just attack with it, right? Like you can't stun this the paladin, with your remaining power. You're basically just, I mean, yeah, you get the one big guy, but that's outclassed by the giant next turn. Yeah, it doesn't help you attack here.
Because you would gain life if you attacked,
And if it comes to that in a future turn, you'll probably have a 7/7 in your void to make it completely out of reach of like the giant. Like it'll be actually bigger than the giant if it does end up coming to that in a few turns or something.
Okay. And all right, so because this happened today, this game is still fresh, so we'll actually go a little deeper in this. Now, so yeah, I actually followed what you guys said. Once I realized that I wasn't going to be able to race them in this scenario, I sacrificed the stun effect and actually kind of encouraged them to attack with the Griffin I'd go down to 8, but it takes one blocker off the table. I was trying to figure out, I figured either way there was a bonus to bouncing the paladin, because they either replay the paladin or they activate their Waystone Gate twice to make the 8/8, and I could just bounce that up with the follow-up Corpse Boom, right? Because no one ever expects a second one. So I bounced the Corpse Boom, I played the Corpse Boom, bouncing the Rageheart Paladin. For their next, and I had no attacks because everything at that point I would have been tapped out, and all my their 3/5 just automatically blocks anything I could send in. So the following turn they activate their Waystone Gate once to get their 8th power, and then replay Rageheart Paladin. So here in that scenario, now that I have a 7/7. Would anyone do anything different than, I believe I ended up just playing the Corpse Boom again, the second one, bouncing the Paladin, and then swinging with the first Corpse Boom. Would anyone do anything different than that there? No? Okay.
I got to think about that for a second.
Yeah, sure. Take a second, because obviously what we could do is stun the and they attacked. I'm sorry, and they did attack with their Griffin. So So one of the things I considered there was close to what Yoda was saying initially, is stunning the Paladin so they don't gain the life, using the Seer, going back and forth on whether to use the Seer or not to take out a blocker, because they may not block you know what I mean, accordingly to hopefully hit me with the crackback, and then they take 3 damage that they weren't expecting, right? That was a consideration as well. I ended up, once again, just bouncing the Paladin and playing another 7/7 and sacrificing the stun effect. Of course,
I'm just trying to imagine that you might have lethal if you stun the Paladin a space and then you get them to 3 health and then you can sear their face. If I'm imagining the board state correctly now.
Yeah, because it's almost exactly what we have in this turn.
Because you have an additional 7/7. Do they have a giant?
No, they reactivated it once.
No, so you stun the Paladin. If they attacked with their Griffin, they only have 3 blockers, and you have 6 attackers. 3 of those attackers get in for 2 damage, and then you can just sear their face for lethal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, oh man.
Always check for lethal.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, if they attacked with that Griffin, that's like a suicide attack here.
Yeah, it's like stun basically for your purposes.
Yeah,
they like gave you a free stun basically.
Nice. Sweet.
Yeah, like that literally just leaves them dead on board. Well, I guess they don't know about the seer in your hand.
Maybe they didn't attack.
Maybe
they didn't attack with the Griffin until they played the Giant. Then maybe that's the way it played out.
That seems weird, especially since you said they were being more conservative like earlier in the game, and we know Titus is a great player. So.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he's ranked 30 here. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe I missed. Maybe yeah, I think maybe they didn't attack last turn, and then the following turn when they made the Giant, then they swung with the Griffin, I believe. Because I mean, at some point
that makes sense.
Yeah,
and then we ended up just doing that where I stunned. What did I?
But again, if you have 2 corpse blooms on board versus their Giant, you're in the same position if they don't develop anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's the what's the play. I felt like it was a very interesting board state for sure, especially us being at such a low lifetime and them having a big lifesteal unit. We were
so many units and so many cards. Like, yeah, this is a complicated one.
Yeah, and then somewhere in my deck I had Shadow Sigils and the Fear Tracker from our pack 1 pick 1, but I mean, it worked out. I had 5 pieces of fixing, but I was also splashing for double seer, so it was one of the more greedy decks I've had in this.
It's funny because you mentioned that this was the pack 1 pick 1. This screenshot makes it look more like an Albin deck.
Yeah.
Right. Than a Fear Tracker deck.
Yeah, for sure.
This would be a good board state for Albin.
Exactly.
Yeah. Shoot, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. Yeah.
That's funny.
This leads us into our constructed corner, and we have a doozy this week. We are actually going to get to talk about the deck that Y0ttabyte himself took to the QCP last week and got a super awesome record of 20-0. That's right, he did so well he didn't have to finish his games. He was just like, flex, I'm done, time for a margarita. So breaking down the deck, of course, you can catch the link on Eternal Warcry in the show notes down below if you're interested in it. Break it down very quickly. 4 Blightmoth, 4 Devour, 4 Even-Handed Golem, 3 Kairos Choice, 4 Kato Arena Herald, 4 Query, 4 Two-Face, 4 Unfamiliar Interloper, 4 Vox Nurturing Sadist, 4 Worthy Cause, 4 Gentle Grazer, 4 Strange Burglar, 4 Nahid's Distillation, 1 Fire Sigil.
3 of those.
What? Oh, what'd I say? 4? Oh, my bad.
Yeah, 3 distillations.
3 Nahid's Distillations, 1 Fire Sigil, 3 Granite Waystone, 3 Time Sigil, 4 Amber Waystone, 2 Shadow Sigil, 4 Crest of Impulse, 4 Crest of Mystery, 4 Xenon Banner, and the market a single and lonely Arc of Soul. All right, Y0tta, tell us about the deck.
So this was a deck that the Boxer from Team Rangstar initially put on Warcry, and I think his comment on the Warcry article was, yeah, this deck is good. I'm not sure if I would take it to a constructed tournament, but it's fun. And I queued it up on ladder, and it just seemed like the most busted pile of cards that I've piloted in a while. I'm like, why did you leak this deck? It's so good. It's just one of those things where someone comes up with a brew and enough credit. I think if Boxer kept the secret, he could have really. I mean, it wasn't totally secret. I know a couple other teams sort of had a similar deck in mind, but he definitely let this one slip. One thing that's probably the main difference between the Boxer's version and the one that I ended up queuing with is he had two carvets, 2 or 3 carvets at the top end, and we ended up replacing those with the Gentle Grazer, which was a really... it just seems like it fits the deck a lot more. Obviously, it has pretty intensive power requirements and does weaken the power base quite a lot and stresses the influence.
I think it's a great innovation, personally. That card is overperformed for me.
But when you got trusty old draft staple unfamiliar interloper, it just makes influence less of a hassle, I guess. What can I say about the deck? The deck just has infinite value. You're drawing so many cards, unbelievable amounts of cards. Even against control decks, which have sleepers, you can just grind and grind and grind through it. I've never seen such a bad matchup for FTJ, which is another one of my pet decks. I would love to be taking FTJ to this next ECQ, but I can't justify it because of this particular deck. It is an absolute nightmare matchup. I feel like it's pretty rare to see such lopsided matchups in Eternal. Usually everything's about 40-60 or something like that. I'd say against FTJ, unless there's some special tech that the FTJ deck can come up with, it feels like it's almost like a 20-80 matchup. It just feels... Wow. When you're on the Vox side, you just feel so good. And when you're on the FTJ side, unless you can sneak in an Ikaria that doesn't get answered or something like that, it's a pretty miserable time because no matter how many board wipes you draw, even-handed Golem and his friends are ready to... I mean, the thing about the Grazer especially is like they wipe your board. You just play Grazer, it high rolls a Golem, and it just feels so awful for the control player when something like that happens. And then you can just develop like a Strange Burglar the turn after and just get a bunch of burst damage out of nowhere to keep the pressure on. So yeah, the deck was a joy to pilot. Obviously, it did really well in the last tournament. Ran into a lot of decks that I wouldn't really consider as like super competitive, so that did help pad out the 20-0 record, but still I ended up losing in the top 32 to the exact mirror. One of my viewers ended up making the top 64 of the deck and beat me with my own poison, so that's probably a pretty in the end pretty good sign that the only thing that could beat me was the mirror.
Fair enough, right?
And someone that watched you pilot it all of day one. It has a really good aggro matchup too, because there's just so many chump blockers. Like you come up the ground and you know the aggro decks are going to slowly remove your units, but then you're like, that's cool, then I'll just get Kato back or play a new Kato and makes me an 88. The deck is...
And Blight Moth is just generally good against aggro.
Yeah, I'd say the aggro matchup can be a bit iffy if they get a real good start, but if you do sort of high roll and get your Blight Moths down early, it just shuts the door on them pretty quick, yeah.
Nice. Is there anything else? Would you pilot this deck again?
So my main hesitation for taking it to the ECQ is just purely the mirror is just miserable because you're just piloting 2 decks that just have infinite value and the board states get really clogged up and complicated, and it's a bit of a nightmare. Saying that, I haven't seen too much of the deck around for whatever reason. 4 copies of Evenbox made the top 8 of the QCP challenge, which was a really good representation. With that, I would have thought ladder would be filled with it. I'm not sure why it isn't. Maybe people are just trying to keep it on the down low still somehow. But yeah, I'm a bit on and off whether I'm going to take it this week. It still is very strong, I think, and would be a good choice.
No, I completely understand about the mirror. That's one of the reasons why I typically try not to play the best deck if I can help it, because it just mirror matches are just absolutely atrocious 90% of the time. Like I think aggro mirror matches aren't too bad. They still kind of stress me out because you got to figure out who's the control and who's the beatdown. But any kind of grindy deck, or value deck or control deck, the mirrors are just, oh my god. And then you're like, I have to play 28 games of this.
Yeah. The mirror is really odd. You end up just like winning with some random blight moths in the air that are getting pumped a million times from not only your strangers but your opponent's strangers. So you feel like, oh, should I play this stranger because I really want to draw 3 cards with it, but it's going to power up my opponent's board. We're coming back to that symmetrical effect thing that gets really kind of frustrating and complicated to work around. Since it's definitely applicable here and constructed with this deck.
Yeah. So speaking of the ECQ this weekend, John, why don't you break down the download or the details for us?
Yeah, sure. So, you guys mentioned there's another ECQ coming up real soon. It's this weekend, just a few days from now from our recording. The qualifiers for this ECQ, it's called Whispers of the Throne. They began on Friday, April 24th at 10 a.m. MDT, that's Mountain Daylight Time, and that's 16 UTC. And they close sharply the next day, Saturday, April 25th at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, or 22 UTC. And entry for that costs 1,800 gems or 35,000 gold. And you're signing up for 28 games, or in Yoda's case, 20. If you manage to just go flawless victory all the way there, you can stop there usually and make day 2. But you're signing up for 28 games, win or lose, and it's a throne format. And it's a battle to make the top 64 and day 2 of the tournament. Broadcast of which begins Sunday, April 26th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, or 17 UTC, live on Twitch on Direwolf's channel. And I know I'll be day 1 competing for sure. I think Yoda as well. Jedi, are you doing this one?
Yep, I'm doing it. I'm sad that I probably won't be playing an aggro deck, but aggro decks just I like playing heavy long tournaments in aggro decks because you can sneak by getting underneath any aggressive strategy, and your games are a lot quicker, so you save a lot of wear and tear on your brain. And let's be honest, I don't have much to give, so
yeah. I mean, I'm usually in Yoda's camp as far as, I mean, I do prep for these, and I'm like, on our Eternal Journey team here now as well. But like I can never actually decide on a deck until I'm like about to queue. That's my weakness for these so far.
Yeah, with the time zones, I usually am like the last on my team to do their runs, so I'm just like, which of my teammates have made the top 64 and what did they pilot? And maybe.
Hey, whatever works, And I mean, you seem to be doing pretty well on these. Like every time I tune in, anyway, I think you're making day 2 pretty consistently. So, I mean, why mess with it if it's working out for you?
The last couple of ECQs have been rough, but yeah, I started off the season pretty good. I think I made top 10 of like the day 1 bracket. But yeah, it would be nice to return to that form this weekend for sure.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for you, as long as you don't play against us.
I think there's like no chance. I tend to watch them, and like. I don't like, even just draft streamers, like anytime I'm watching someone, I'm generally not queuing into them,
right.
Just because I'm watching them, like it's not like oh, I don't want to queue against this person. It's like I'm sitting here watching you. I'm not doing my ECQ games while I'm watching, Plus it's just kind of nice, especially for ECQ tournaments and things like that, to just kind of get a preview of the field. I mean, I'm sure we all have some idea what to expect, but it's like a live look in to what's going on in there.
I've been fairly lucky about not queuing into friends whenever I'm doing these competitive tournaments, but I mean, granted, I say that as I pretty much always see Parmalee from the Misplay podcast at some point in my climb.
Yeah, I've run into a friend every single one of these so far, actually, now that you mention it.
I mean, I guess
whether it's a teammate or just a friend.
Excluding top 64 matchups, of course.
like even this last time I got up super early. I don't know why, but I was like probably 5 a.m. my time. So I was like, I'll grab some breakfast, get some caffeine in me. I'll start my run early. And I didn't even think about saying anything in Discord because I'm like, who's going to be up at this time? And then somewhere like, I think game 8 or 9, I go up against Pook from our team. And I'm like, no. I was like, gosh darn it. And he's like, yeah, I didn't think anyone was going to be playing right now either. So I didn't say anything. I was like, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, are you in a game in Discord, go back and forth the whole time? Seems a little tedious, but it was still a little bit of a bummer. So
the easiest way is just to, generally play at a different time than your teammates or whatever.
Nope.
That's the easiest way to do it, I think. But what can you do sometimes?
All right, guys. So you have an actual treat. As we were in post-production just kicking it, turns out that we got a spoiler for the next set, Eternal Shadow of the Spire. So we're going to weigh on Y0ttabyte's expertise yet again to get his first impressions on this, the first spoiler. This is Wrath of Caiaphas. This is a 7-cost, completely neutral, factionless, slow spell, legendary. Each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. Because we know you like symmetrical effects there, Y0ttabyte. You can pay 2 to swap Wrath of Caiaphas from your hand with a random power card from your deck. All right, Yoda. I mean, we just saw this card, so what are you thinking?
So the thing that's interesting to me the most is the swap ability. I wonder how many cards from the set are going to have this effect. It'll be interesting to see if it's like a theme or a mechanic of the set. That's pretty exciting if it is, because it, I don't know, improves consistency and allows you to play these sort of flashy cards without drawing too many of these sort of effects early usually is really, really bad. But if you can replace them with like random power to smooth out your early draws, it's kind of cool. I know my friends, my fellow barbarians, will be extremely happy that more volatility hits are being printed. It's sort of interesting with volatility that you can draw your power with volatility in a sort of roundabout way. One of the things that I have a little bit of a gripe about volatility is, wow, you can like build around it and then draw 5 cards for 2 power, but they all cost 7, so it's not like you can play them.
Right.
You just end up with a handful of 7 drops. But if you can use some of those 7 drops and maybe get some power instead, that makes interesting. Very interesting. As the actual effect of the card, discarding your hand and drawing 7 cards, that's only really powerful if you can build a deck where you can sort of dump your hand before your opponent, so you get more card advantage. So there is some deck building sort of restrictions around this. I'm not sure if I'm like super excited to play, especially with something like this for 7 power, but it's super interesting card nevertheless. And the fact that it's factionless as well is means that it can go in any deck that possibly wants to go this late.
Yeah, the fact that it's factionless is one of the things that leads me to believe there's a potential that it's just kind of a one-of as far as that pay 2 to swap Wrath of Caiaphas with power, just because it can go in so many decks. It could be a litmus test to see how the community feels about it before they actually mainstream it. But who knows? I definitely agree with you. I think the fact that they could slap this on a bunch of mid-range to expensive cards and give you that flexibility where you can play those and not necessarily sacrificing too much of your deck, because if you draw it early you can ship it. This could potentially favor, it could be interesting to see this in limited, because sometimes based on what you play, right, you're giving your opponent 7 cards as well, but there's a chance that they're discarding that one removal spell they were holding on to the whole game, and maybe they already played their bomb, so they're just not drawing gas, versus you still have your bomb or 2 in your potential deck. The other thing as well is, like you said, it discards, but it doesn't shuffle your void back into your deck. So this could also potentially fuel some void shenanigans, right? Discarding your hand and then drawing 7 more is quite relevant. The one thing to take in consideration is that it is a slow spell, which means your opponent has first crack at deploying everything that they drew. So that is something to consider about it as well. I do like what you said as far as getting this off of volatility, because it does give you, once again, insurance. I don't know. It could potentially favor control decks, maybe, or maybe aggro decks. I'm not necessarily sure, because control decks would have more powerful cards to play in the late game. So refilling their hand would be a lot stronger when your aggro decks are just going to play more 2 and 3 drops. But maybe sometimes getting rid of your opponent's board wipes and then drawing a bunch of gas could help as well. Let's start with you, Alex. What do you think of Wrath of Caiaphas?
Is that the biggest factionless
No.
spell? No?
Spell. Okay.
A spell, maybe.
Yeah, because I was going to say there's Spirit of Resistance.
Yeah, card, no.
Yeah.
No, card, no. Yeah, no, that's just what jumped out at me. I was like, that's a big color.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it is.
So it's kind of like a Wheel of Fortune type of a thing from like
Mm-hmm.
Magic, and it's like typically not that great, but being able to swap it is what makes it. It's kind of like it has cycling, kind of like if it's late game and you want it, or I don't know. You guys know I'm really good at constructed, so
Specifically land cycling, I guess.
yeah,
Right?
kind of right. Like it costs 2 to do it, even.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you guys broke it down pretty good.
I guess it's not even exactly cycling either, because it swaps it, right? So I guess you put this back in your deck in that case.
It cycles for a basically a power draw, right?
Yeah, but this, like, instead of this going to your void, like this actually
It goes back
literally goes into your deck wherever that power was, I guess.
I do wonder if it counts as a card draw for any cards that care about that.
That is,
I think that's how like markets are worded, right? Pay to swap, or like not pay, but swap
no, I think
this
markets
card.
do actually say draw. Maybe not. I don't know. I'll double check. That's quite interesting, though. That is a very good point, though, Yoda. That because those interactions definitely do matter in Eternal for sure. The other interesting thing as well to taking into account is you mentioned that earlier in the show, as far as the fact that because Eternal is strictly digital, any modifications to the cards is permanent. If you're able to make Wrath of Caiaphas any cheaper, I mean, I don't know how important that is, but or you give it Echo or things like that, like all that will still trigger when you are Destiny or whatnot, if you swap it, put it back into the deck as well.
So yeah, merchants are actually worded swap, so I guess this would count.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, like I like one of the things that jumps out obviously is that it's colorless, right? And we just saw that factionless land or power printed in this last campaign that we were like, well, maybe there's going to be some, colorless factionless support in the next set, and this kind of hints that might be a thing.
Yeah,
That's
you can make your Wrath of
hyped
Caiaphas
about.
cost 6 or 5, depending on how many offers you draw. You play.
Yeah, or who knows what other kind of factionless stuff there's going on. Like, I mean, there's no way right now to get a card like this in your market, for example. Maybe there'll be some kind of factionless market access, because this is too expensive to use one of these spell-based market cards or whatever. So
yeah. Plus the cheaper,
maybe there'll be some kind of colorless market access. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, and the cheaper you make it, then the higher the chance you have of playing another spell or something the same turn that you Wrath.
As far as like the Wrath, or not, as far as like the Wheel of Fortune effect, like, I mean, what do we have right now, right? That would want something like this, like gift,
the 1/2.
maybe.
No, gosh darn it, the limit is the 1/2 that has exalted and it gets plus attack based on what you discard. It's a plus 14 to attack. Whisper?
The Siphoner, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, hey.
Oh yeah, that does pop off. Yeah.
Yeah, some Siphoner make it unblockable.
Yeah.
Get a Siphoner aggro.
That's ridiculous.
Actually, the boom. That's it. I broke it. Boom. Limited person just broke constructed right now.
Hey, people are doing that, with melees.
You heard it here first. The other thing to consider, since Y0ttabyte did mention volatility, this goes very well with Medias, right? Yeah, because I mean, you like like you said, you're drawing the power, so it'll trigger the treasure trove make it effect, right? Because every time
Yeah.
so there's something just because volatility goes or those two cards go together. I think
Yeah, Matthias definitely loves expensive spells like this that kind of dirtle and draw cards.
so.
I'm sure there's something a serious temporal control player would probably do with this to annoy people.
I mean that would be a perfect time for Wrath as well, right? End of your opponent's turn, you give them a new hand. They had a game plan, and you just completely mess it up. Plus, you got 7 new cards to capitalize on as you start your turn.
Right.
It's gonna be interesting. I think so. In a nutshell, closing statements on this. Off the top of your head, how many of these do you guys think should go in a deck? Are you running the full 4? Are you running 2, 1?
I can't. I mean, I can't even imagine a deck for this right now. I think I'm gonna have to see like the new set to have any idea there.
Oh, you're gonna find this off of your garden. I know you, John.
This looks like
There's
Death's
nothing
gonna
that
slot it into his
Right.
specialty deck somewhere, I imagine, for sure.
Like, there's no market that it can go in, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 1 in your deck. I don't know. That's just
I mean,
me.
if you have some deck built around this effect, you're definitely running for these in your main deck because of the swappability, right?
Siphoner, bro. Siphoner. That's it. That's where it's at.
I mean, it's kind of just a worse petition with upside. Like, I guess if we go by somewhat similar to Joe, but not at the same time, like it's same effect, but you're not getting that actual physical card that you can swap into a market or something like that. But something that you can use early to develop your power or whatever, and then late game has a powerful effect or potentially powerful effect is something to be said for cards like that.
I mean, I like the fact that it's repeatable too, right? Because every time you draw it and you need power, you'll just swap it for a power, and then eventually you're like, hey, it's in late game, I have 9 power, sure, I'll just draw 7 more cards. So I think the card's not a dud. I don't think it's gonna be I don't think it's gonna break the format, but I think this was actually a pretty well designed card, honestly.
I agree. Yeah. It's a spicy one. I like spicy cards.
I think that's the reason why they made it factionless, honestly, is just, I mean, well, one, Kaifus is factionless, but I think the other aspect of it is the fact that it opens up the door for the most amount of brewing with this card.
True.
And yeah, Kaifus has either been through a time warp or lived through some really difficult years, because he looks like he's aged like 50 years.
Yeah, he's definitely not the young strapping man that we saw in the first campaign or the intro to the game.
He's
gotten revenge. He's gone back into the deck. He's come back with Destiny. He's got exalted. He's gone on to another unit, and he's feeling pretty tired after all that.
Actually, yeah, that fully makes sense. I like that. Thanks for the breakdown.
You guys just had to make me a promo card, didn't you? All right. Well, once again, that is our not exclusive, but our brand spanking new Eternal Shadows of the Spire. Spoiler. Ooh. But all right, I think that's gonna do it. Let's go ahead and call it a wrap here. Y0ttabyte, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to and fight the whole time zone thing to be on the show. I think it was a blast kicking it with you, man. So thank you so much for all that you've done for the community, for sticking with this game for so long, and once again for being on the show.
No, likewise, this has been a great time. Thank you, Jedi, for all the content that you put out. You're much more motivated and what's the word? I don't know. I'm so lazy with my content. I just sit. I just press the start stream button and just waffle on for 4 hours on Twitch. Whereas I'm not putting out all these structured and fantastic videos on YouTube like you are. So, you do a great service to the community yourself.
You're too kind, man. Too kind. Trust me. I'm still learning as I go as well. I just, like you said, man, it's the community. I mean, people consume this and they enjoy it. And even just today, we got some feedback about someone that hit Masters in Gauntlet for the very first time, thanks to one of our constructed corners. So, I mean, those are the things that really make it happen. And you know, I'm sure you were excited to the fact that one of your, you know, honorable viewers watched you play a deck and replicated it, and that got them to the top 64, you know, because of what they learned from watching you. So it's things like that definitely keep us going, I think. But speaking of which, where can people find you at, friend?
Twitch.tv/Y0ttabyte, Y0ttabyte. I'm usually streaming around about 8 p.m. Melbourne time, which is that's UTC plus 10 at the moment. So yeah,
And
usually an early morning stream for you Americans.
what days of the week do you stream?
All of them.
Nice.
Yes.
So pretty much the reverse
Yes.
schedule from John. Awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you can catch John and Alex until John gets his life together and actually does that stream he's been promising everyone. You can catch them.
It's my internet lately. It's not my fault, I swear.
Fair. You can catch them both on my stream, twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ, every Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, weekend afternoons, weekday evenings. Catch them, hang out there, watch them troll me and call me out for all my horrible punta-ones. And of course, mention the YouTube, EternalJourney on YouTube. You guys catch draft videos, sealed videos, beginner tutorials, this podcast, various top fives and things like that. I got a couple other things I have in the works. And then of course, join our Discord. It's just a great community. That's all I can say about it. It's grown way beyond anything I could possibly imagine. We have people getting better at constructed, getting better at limited, and just having a good time. I recently had to start a pet channel for people to post their pet pictures, and that's probably one of our most popular channels now. So
That's how you know your Discord's made it.
yeah, I literally thought our Discord was gonna be like 4 channels for the extent of its life, and now I think we have like 8 different voice channels. It's insane. But all right, guys, that is going to do it. Thank you so much for listening. Really do appreciate it. Yoda, you are great. Once again, check out Y0ttabyte's stream. He is absolute delight to watch. Educational, fun, entertaining. And yeah, if you have anything to add about the show, feel free to comment in the, I guess, comment section down below. God, I am so bad at this host thing, and I'm not even going to edit that out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And of course, as always, happy gaming.
Good night, everybody.
Good luck in your draft queues, everyone.